First is, one of the books that were foundational for me was a book by Alex and Brett Harris, two teenage kids that wrote a book called Do Hard Things. Has anyone ever read that book? No? Oh my gosh, go read it. It was written by high schoolers, and it's brilliant. So Alex and Brett, in this book, they kind of share a few things that I want to share with you. The first is this story about elephants and how elephants are trained in Asia. Now, you think about an elephant for a minute. Like, Asian farmers use elephants all the time. The elephant is the strongest beast on earth, right? So if we're in a tug-of-war contest with an elephant, elephant's on that side, we're on this side, and there's not just one of me, but 100 of me just lined up with a long rope, guys about my size, against the elephant. Elephant wins every time. That's how strong and massive the elephant is. And so you think about how a farmer is going to teach that beast to sit or to stay. Well, in order to do it, what they do is they take this little twine, little thin rope, tie it around its right hind leg, and then they go tie it to like a fence post or just whatever they can find. And the elephant doesn't move. I mean, the elephant could literally sneeze and snap that thing in half and be free, but it doesn't move. So I'll come back to that in a minute on how that gets done. The other thing Alex and Brett talk about is this kind of myth of adolescence and the teenager. So, how many of you knew that the teenager is actually a recent invention? It's not even 100 years old. Like, the first time someone ever uttered the word teen was like in the 1940s. So all throughout history, there was no such thing as a teenager. So what did exist? Well, boys and girls went from being boys and girls to men and women. There was no adolescence. There was no teenager. Like, people were getting married at 16, right? When you got to the age of 12, you were taking over the family business. You were working full time. Education was a luxury for most of human history. There was no public school system. Those are all recent inventions, like last 100 years. So for most of modern history, there was no teenage concept. And so what happened? Well, around the early 1900s, we had in our culture here a series of education and labor reform laws. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but here's basically what happened. Children, young kids were working in harsh factory conditions all around the U.S., all around the world, because you had to. You had to make ends meet. And that's what you did. Well, in order to protect children, we raised the age in this country in which you could actually work. So it wasn't cool anymore for a 10-year-old to have a 40, 50, hour a week job working in a factory. That wasn't going to fly. And so when that happened, we realized, okay, well, if these young kids can't work, what are they going to do during the day? Then came a series of education reform laws where we said, well, let's mandate they go to school. And the public school system was kind of formed. And kind of the rest is history. But what happened? What were the unintended consequences of this? Well, look, for most of human history, people went, for those of you who read the Bible, you know that there were kings at 12 years old. Kings. For most of human history, children went from being kids to men and women and were immediate producers in society. You just produced. You had something to give, and you were capable of it. But now, in our culture today, here you are as teenagers with all of the capabilities of producing like an adult but none of the expectations. You have turned into consumers. And that's pretty much what you do. Consume and produce very little. The world expects little out of you, and you are happy to oblige. So sad. So what happened? Well, back to the story of the elephant. How do these Asian farmers do it? I mean, what happens? How do you train an elephant to just sit? That's insane. Well, here's how they do it. When the elephant's a baby, they take this massive chain and they tie it around its right hind leg and they tie it to a big tree. And as in its nature, the elephant tugs and tugs and tugs against it until there's this massive gash in its leg, and the pain is so severe that the elephant stops. It's bleeding everywhere. It's trapped. It knows it. And so as the elephant grows, that chain is replaced with a light rope, and the tree is replaced by a post, and the slightest tug against its right hind leg triggers to the elephant, I'm not going anywhere. And we realize that the chain doesn't exist around the elephant's leg. The chain, the real chain, exists around the elephant's mind. That's the predicament you are in as teenagers. All the capabilities of impacting and changing the world, none of the expectations, the chain exists around your mind. And so as we go into this, my goal and our goal together is to start to loosen that chain and unlock it. Because the truth is that you going into this next school year can make a major impact. Not only your campus, but the lives of those closest to you. And we're going to show you how. So, a couple of things about your generation, Generation Z. Many of you may have heard yourselves referred to as Generation Z. It's pretty much the 18 and under crowd. That's you guys. A couple of quick facts about you guys that are awesome. Here they are. You are the first truly digitally native generation. You know what that means? That means that you got babysat by a smartphone and iPad. When your parents were driving and you were screaming in the back of the car and they were like, oh my God, just shut up. Here's my phone. Here's my tablet. That's how you guys were raised. It's you're digital natives. You're going to navigate that and pioneer that frontier like no other generation before you. You also have access to information at your fingertips. You know how to find stuff online quicker than anyone else. Ironically, you don't do it very often, but it's there. You think in terms of we, not me. In other words, you have this natural inclination to look around and want to be united with other people. You also champion diversity better than any generation before you. It's just a norm for your generation. You're also highly entrepreneurial. That gift may not have surfaced yet, but what that means is that you're capable of thinking outside the box more so than other generations. So there's a lot of great things that are just at your fingertips just because of the time that you were born in. But here's the thing about potential, and this is what I need you to know. The thing about potential is that potential doesn't guarantee anything. In fact, potential is just a measure of what you could do, not a guarantee of what you will do. So you have a choice to make. And so let's talk about that a little bit more. Now, some of you may have rolled into this camp with different perspectives on how you view yourself. Some of you may have a very low, kind of perceived self-worth. I don't really know. I don't like the way I look. I don't feel like I'm good at anything. I don't know where I fit in. You're at that place. I get it. It's kind of normal. So you're not alone. Some of you are on the other end of the stream where you're like, man, yeah, that stuff's going good, man. I'm good at, I'm pretty confident in my academics, my sports, friend group, peer group. I feel like I have my niche in life. And you like have this high kind of view of yourself. And some of you are kind of like, meh. You're in the middle. I understand all three of those. I understand the meh because I grew up feeling average at everything. Everything. I wasn't born a speaker. Like the idea of me standing up and talking to you guys would have terrified me 20 years ago. So I had to ease my way into this. But man, I grew up in an average neighborhood, your average family. I was average, got C's, B's, some A's. Average student. I was average at sports. There wasn't anything I really excelled at. I even have an average name, Joe. I mean, everything was just meh. So I grew up wondering, is there anything that I'm really going to excel at? And if you're in that place, I just want to tell you the answer is yes. So let's figure out what that is. As we get into spiritual gifts, which is the first part we're going to talk about, I just want to share an example that sets everything up. So I have with me a box of puzzle pieces. All right? Any of you guys puzzle piece people? Anyone do puzzles? All right, some of you like puzzles. I hate puzzles. But here's a puzzle, and one I would probably never do because it's some colorful, boring village that I could care less about. But the interesting part about puzzles is that if we were to sit down, even if you don't do puzzles, you have a strategy with this thing, right? Because you're going to set the box up, you're going to open it up. What are you going to do? You're going to look for the edges. You're going to work on the frame first. When the frame is set and you're looking at the box, you're going to pick a section. You're going to zero in on something and say, okay, I need all the orange-like pieces because I'm going to work on this side. And you get someone else is working with you, they're going to work on that side. And you systematically put it together with the picture in mind, and you form the puzzle. Well, let's say that each of these puzzle pieces represents something unique about who you are. Okay, it could be your passion. It could be your personality. It could be your natural talents, your spiritual gifts. You have something called a love language, which I know is weird, but if you've never taken that test before, you have all kinds of different traits, and they all express your unique design, even your life experiences. Right? So ironically, most human beings will put more energy into working a puzzle than they ever will figuring out who they are, why they're here, how they're made, and why it matters. And that, to me, is unfortunate. So, that's ultimately what we're going to go through and say, all right, who am I? Why am I here? What does it matter? Identity, purpose, belonging. As humans, and especially as teens, those are our three biggest areas.